What was Flowey's adventures in the underground before Frisk came along? As we know, Asriel had the power to save and reset before Frisk came in. But before theorizing about this journey, how did he get that power to begin with? Well, someone with strong enough determination can obtain this power. Omega Flowey stole this power from Frisk after gaining the determination of the Fallen Souls. But how did Asriel get it before Frisk fell? Let's take a step back before the death of Asriel. His best friend, Chara, ate the butterscotch flowers and became very ill. They did this so Asriel could absorb their soul, cross the barrier, and take 6 other souls to free all monsters and continue the war. Asriel was on board with this plan until the day Chara died. Asriel didn't like this plan anymore. He didn't want to kill the humans and lose his best friend. But he couldn't betray Chara's last request, to see the flowers from the village. Asriel absorbed their soul and turned into a being with incredible power. This being controlled by both Asriel and Chara. Chara was the one who took their own body back to their village. Then, once the humans attacked, they tried to use their power to destroy them all. However, Asriel fought against this and took control instead. He smiled at the humans and walked away. He stumbled home and collapsed in the castle. He had died. Alphys took the flower Asriel turned into and injected determination into him. Unlike the Amalgamates, Asriel did not become a hideous being. Instead, he woke up at his save point in the garden, without a soul. And this is where the speculation comes in. Let's start with what we do know. Asriel, waking up, not feeling his limbs, and seeing that he had become a flower, cried out for help, but nobody came. Until Asgore came by, and Flowey explained everything to him. Asgore held him, with tears in his eyes. However, Asriel couldn't feel emotion. He realized he couldn't feel anything for anyone. He spent a lot of time with Asgore, trying so hard to feel something for him, but it became too much for him. Asriel ran away from the castle until he reached the ruins and met Toriel. He thought out of everyone, she would be the one to make him feel, but he still couldn't. Being unable to love and care for someone, he tried to follow in Chara's footsteps. He decided he didn't want to live anymore. Not in a world without love or his best friend. He succeeded in doing so, but what happens when you die without a soul? Asriel felt a burning feeling. He told himself that he didn't want to die. And then he woke up at his save point. Being intrigued with this ability, Asriel started to experiment. He tried to erase himself again and again, but as long as he was determined to live, he could go back to his save point. At first he used his powers for good, being friends with everyone. However, it got repetitive real fast, so he had the thought of killing everyone instead. Asriel really didn't want to do this, but he just had to know what would happen. He did a genocide run. But even this got repetitive. He's done everything this world has had to offer. But then Frisk came along. Flowey did not recognize them, and wanted to take their soul to see what happens. But when he tried to load his last save, it failed. Now here is a timeline split of whether Frisk was a pacifist, neutral, or genocide run. On pacifist and neutral, Flowey tries to kill them and take their soul so he could gain control over the timeline again. However, he fails and regains his love for a small moment. Here he says that he's never really thought Frisk was Chara, but Frisk was the friend he had wished he always had. On genocide, he still mistakes Frisk for Chara, but really believes that they are Chara. He's with Frisk all the way on their path to destroy the world. But in the castle, he notices Frisk stare, and doesn't like the plan anymore, just like how he did with Chara. In fear, he runs to Asgore and tells him of the monster Frisk was, but he was too late, and Frisk killed him. Now let's go back to Asriel's journey before Frisk stole his powers from him, and theorize the runs Asriel did. Let's start with the pacifist runs. As we know from Genocide dialogue, Flowey started out being friends with everyone and solving all their problems, very similar to Undertale's true pacifist route. However, Asriel's save point was in the garden in Asgore's castle, so he would be starting there rather than in the ruins. And on the topic of that, I had always wondered why there were so many save points in New Home. There's the one at the start for obvious reasons, then the one at the entrance to Asgore's house, which kinda makes sense, but it's also really close to the first one. Then there's the one on the last corridor, which also makes sense. The one at the barrier, which makes sense. And then there's the one in the garden. That's the one that always confused me. But looking at it now, that save point is there because of Asriel. How could he wake up in the garden without a save point? I thought it was just interesting to point out. Anyways, Flowey starts off his playthroughs by befriending Asgore. They would probably share a more father-son-like relationship since that's exactly what they are. Flowey will venture out of the castle and end up in the court. And here's the debate of whether monsters attack Asriel or not. I think it's much more likely that the monsters don't attack other monsters, and Flowey was the one who initiates battle during his genocide runs. So instead of fighting, Flowey goes up to the monsters and starts being their friend and helping them out. The force fields in the core were turned off before Flowey went through, so it was very easy for him to enter Mettaton Resort. Not like he couldn't just go underground and basically teleport anywhere he wanted anyway. I think Flowey would likely do literally everything there has to offer here. Talk with Burger Pants and maybe buy something if he had any gold, walk around the diner and talk to people and watch that awful comedian on stage, spend a night in a hotel room, and find the secret path that defies the laws of physics. I think Flowey would be interested in the art club and want to know what it's about, so he exits the hotel and looks for the other secret path. He meets many monsters along the way, but eventually finds it. Unfortunately for him, it's not the right time for the art meeting, so he just leaves and carries on. Asriel finds his way to Alphys' lab, where she is not there. That's because Alphys is in the true lab, currently conducting more experiments with determination. So Asriel does not find out that he's been injected with determination by her, thus getting the power to save and reset. So, he walks around the lab for a bit, until he decides to leave and continue forward. Or I guess, backwards. In Waterfall, Flowey meets Undyne, who is currently looking for humans like she always does. He tries to strike up a conversation, but Undyne completely ignores him and continues her search. Flowey accepts that she isn't interested in talking right now, and finds his way to Temmie Village. I like to think that Asriel pays the Temmie for her college, but other than that, there isn't much to do here, so he exits the secret village of the Temmies and makes his way to Gerson's shop. Flowey will probably talk to him and learn more about the history of monsters, but after spending all his money on Temmie, he can't afford anything in the shop, so he leaves and finds the ghost houses. No one is home, however, since Bluku left for the ruins, and Mettaton acquired his robot body. But now here comes the question. How the hell does Flowey get up to Upper Waterfall? I guess he takes the same route as both Monster Kid and Undyne in the main game. Although Undyne can apparently teleport just like Sans and Flowey, so I guess he could have also just used that. Upper Waterfall doesn't really have anything to do in it other than Undyne patrolling the area, and the occasional monster Asriel becomes friends with. Onto Snowdin, Asriel walks through the town, meeting a lot of monsters and the rest of the Royal Guard. Papyrus isn't in training yet, and Sans hasn't met Toriel yet. That doesn't really matter though, since all the humans other than Frisk have already fallen down and got killed. Flowey ends up meeting Papyrus, and they share a lot in common, thus causing Papyrus to start the Flowey fan club. Flowey eventually leaves, meeting with the other Snowdin monsters, does everything he could in the town, and finds the door to the ruins. Asriel's goal here was to get Toriel to come out of hiding, and maybe Asgore could finally realize his big mistake in killing the fallen humans. He goes under the door, and finds Toriel tending to the golden flowers. He begins talking with her, and tries his absolute best to convince Toriel to confront Asgore, but it was no use. Toriel dodges this question, and leaves Asriel. Seems like that conversation pissed her off, but doing everything he could, Asriel resets, and does it all over again. Only this time, he doesn't talk about Asgore to Toriel, and becomes friends with her instead. But Asriel just had to know what would happen if he killed everyone, so he started his genocide runs. Knowing he can't kill the king, he exits New Home and goes to the core. He kills everyone. The monsters in the core, the workers at the hotel, the guests at the hotel, everyone. He makes his way to Waterfall, where Undyne is once again on the lookout for humans. He sneaks up to her and tries to kill her before she could even react. However, Undyne hears Flowey coming up to her, and sees him ready to attack. So with her reflexes, she attacks him. But Flowey got the better of her, and she starts to turn to dust. But before that, a burning feeling builds inside her that won't let her die. Don't get the wrong idea though. This isn't Undyne the Undying. Rather, it's Undyne on the neutral route if you decide to kill her. She melts after Flowey's continuous attacks, and he goes on to kill the rest of Waterfall. He moves to Snowdin, where Sans is already aware of his killing spree, and attempts to stop him. And before you start telling that Sans is lazy, and it doesn't make sense for him to attack Asriel, Sans didn't fight Frisk only because he made that promise to Toriel. And even on Genocide, he had that promise, but breaks it at the very end because he's done trying to protect a murderer. So it makes a lot of sense in this scenario that Sans would attack Asriel. During this battle, Papyrus sees the two of them fighting and tries to stop it. Sans tells him everything about what Flowey has done, but Papyrus says that Flowey deserves forgiveness, and he thinks that Flowey can change. In the middle of this, Flowey kills Papyrus, which just angers Sans even more. But Sans eventually gets tired from all the fighting, and Asriel manages to knock him down. He went to kill the rest of the monsters who tried to escape, but there was nowhere they could run since Flowey came in from the only path ahead. He meets them at the ruins door, where he kills them, and enters under the door to kill Toriel and the other ruins monsters. There was only one monster left, the king. With his high level of violence, he returns to the castle and fights Asgore. However, he dies to him, and resets to his old save. He just had to know what would happen if he killed Asgore, so he starts over again. However, this one reminds him of his best friend Chara, and how they wanted to destroy the humans. He starts to blame himself for both of their deaths. If he hadn't stopped Chara from killing the humans, both of them would have lived within him. But instead, he caused the permanent death of his best friend, all because he refused to kill anyone. This thought angers him, and he adopts the horrible view of the world. Kill or be killed. This is where his genocidal path truly begins. He does this genocide run over and over again, but he could never make it past Asgore. He even tries the sneak attack tactic that he used on Undyne to see if it would work on him, but to no avail. He just couldn't win. But all that changed when he tried out his new strat. He would start from the ruins, and try to get better at fighting by going in order of the weakest monsters to the strongest monsters. But even that didn't work. So he kept trying at it, until he would eventually beat Asgore. But then something unusual happened. Frisk fell into the underground. Asriel did not recognize them. He had done everything this world had to offer, seen every possibility and dialogue, but he had never seen this before. Being unsure of what to do, he tried to load his old save, but it didn't work. And here takes place the events of Undertale. And that's Flowey's adventures in the underground before it first came along. Thank you for sticking to the end, and if you did, please consider subscribing. I reached 1k recently, so let's see if we can reach 2k by the end of the year. But anyways, let me know your own thoughts on this theory in the comments down below, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.